Okay, the last video crashed, so I'm picking up from where I left off. The crash was well, actually, it wasn't a crash, it was a restart due to that Xamarin update that I installed. And it hadn't canceled it, and it just sort of decided to restart my PC, which is absolutely wonderful. But anyway, I'm going to reload the emulator manager. This gives me a chance to show you how to do this again. Because you'll need to do this quite often. For that, I just go to Tools, open Android Emulator Manager, and this is what comes up. I think I was trying 14 last time, so I'm going to give that a shot again. I'm going to hit Launch. It goes through its motions. There we are. We got to wait for it to come up. Okay, there it is now. And then again, we're going to go to Run, Start Without Debugging. This will do some build steps, and then it should ask me where I want to deploy to. So it's building Tasky Android. This is some of the code for Tasky Android. You'll get used to messages such as this. Deployment failed, internal error. Could not find file, debug runtime armv apk. So this is because the thing isn't fully loaded yet. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer. And now you can tell it's fully loaded with the charging 50% thing, so this should go through fine. Okay, so I've got the deployment completed message, and what should happen here is it should take over the, we should see Tasky on the screen here any minute now. And there it is, finally, yay! So I can hit Add Task. This is what I wanted to show you almost 10 minutes ago. I can add task, and I can say blah, blah, get stuff. And this is apparently not a good API to be running it with, but you can tell that it's actually working. It's just that the keyboard isn't totally visible. So next time we run this, we'll run it on a different API that has a bigger screen. The resolution just for the app isn't quite set right. So that is that. You can add things to it, enter in some notes. Pair. There we go. So basically, you add a task and notes, and it comes up as your task list, and then you can check on it. And you can hit delete on it, and it removes it from the list. So basically just a running list. ATZ pair is now the only one that's in there, and then I could delete on that one as well, and etc. So that is the task system that we're going to be looking into coming up. But first I want to start out with Hello World. So I'm going to go ahead and get to that. So to do Hello World is really easy. Well, actually, first, before I even get to that, I just want to show you that this is all the code here. This is where our solution manager is, and when we do Hello World, we're going to see that same kind of setup. So go to New and Solution, and we're going to say Android Application. That's under Recent, but if not, you can always go to Android and hit Android application, and we're going to say hello world, and the solution name is going to be hello world. I've created a Xamarin directory here that I'm going to use for hello world, and then create directory for solution. You check mark on that, and you hit OK. So we're going to close the project because Tasky Android is currently running, but we can close that no problem. So I close that up, and here's my hello world, and this should look kind of familiar. Namespace hello world. Now all Android apps work as activities. The main activity is the one that starts it off, and then on the create we set our views up and our buttons. And this is going to just basically track the number of clicks that we're doing. Just to go over briefly what we've got here in the solution, we've got assets, properties, and resources. Resources are going to be like your layout designs, your XML files. Assets is going to be specific assets to your application. Those are available at runtime. Resources are generally like the PNGs, for example. Any kind of thing that can be thought of as a resource. Properties are your typical manifest files, for example. Most of this stuff you don't really have to be too concerned about yet. The icon that we're using here, just to open that up, is just a simple little icon that launches the app. And we've got some about sections in here that talk about how the images and resources should be laid out. Mainly we're going to be working today in this main activity CS file, and I'm going to be asking you to add some stuff. So let's go ahead and do that. But first, I would like to point you to the Activity Lifecycle page on the Xamarin App Center, which is docs.xamarin.com, Guides, Android Application Fundamentals, Activity Lifecycle. This talks about what activities are. Activities are basically concepts specific to Android. With Android, basically, applications are launched with any registered activity that's inside of an application. That way you can basically say, okay, I'm going to launch this activity that's within this application. That allows you to easily be able to, for example, access other things that are within other applications, for example, like geographical data or the camera or something like that. There's various activity states and life cycles. Activities can be running, they can be paused, they can be backgrounded, they can be stopped. So think of this as threads, really. Any of these can be considered active or running in the foreground. We're going to have one running main one and we're going to call it main activity in this case. So we'll get to more of that in a little bit. The first thing we're going to do is add some stuff to our CS file here. Specifically, we're going to add a text view and a button. So this button here is already added, but we're going to modify it. What we're going to do is we're going to modify this onCreate function to do our bidding, and this is what I want you to use. Base.onCreate bundle. So onCreate is called every time an activity starts. And then we're going to create a new layout. That's going to be our user interface layout, which is going to be a linear layout. This is going to be used to position the controls, and it's going to be a vertical layout. Then we're going to create some new labels. That are going to be some text labels. And we're going to say alabel.text equals hello Xamarin Android. Next we're going to create our button, and it's going to be a button equals new button, and the text on it is going to be say hello. And then the click function is going to basically say, here's a lambda function. That's what we've seen this before in like week 3, I believe, in our MUD. But basically this is going to say the sender should be notified that alabel.text is going to be hello from the button. So whenever click happens, it's going to add this to it, this function call, and it's going to say hello from the button. And we're going to add this layout of view, a label, and we're going to add a button, and then we're going to set the content view to layout. So you can think of this as basically modifying the text in a label. It's going to say hello from the button, and this is a lambda expression that basically says when the click happens, call this function, and the function will change it to hello from the button. And then the final step is to actually add this to the screen. So we do set content view layout. So this is going to just kind of blindly add this label here and then a button. And it's going to do that in order of a label, then a button. And it's just going to use the default sizes for these things, which we can change later. So we're going to try to run that on our already, well, hopefully you've already configured this. If not, you can go up to Tools, open Android Emulator Manager, and create one, or hopefully one already exists for you. If one does not, there's a section in here for device definitions. What I would suggest you use is probably something like the Galaxy Nexus. That's had some pretty good results for me. The Nexus 10 has had some good results for me. And so have some of these QVGA ones. And then what you would do is you would hit Create AVD for this. You have to choose a skin. QVGA is usually what I've selected. An API level. Make sure you have this API level installed in your Android SDK folder, which by default usually ends up being C Android, although actually for yours it might be in C Program Files, Xamarin Android. Mine I default set to C Android just so I knew where it was. What you're going to want to do is make sure you know where this is, because this Android SDK folder is very important. This has all your SDKs on here, so 14, 16, 17, 18, and 19 are what's installed on mine. One thing I wanted to show you how to do, because I think it's extremely important, is how do you search for things in Windows. There's really awful search tools, quite frankly, on Windows, and there's one program called Everything, which I really think everyone should pretty much have. If you go to voidtools.com/download.php, you can pick up a really nice program. Just call this is just called everything.exe. I'm just going to pick this up quick. I don't think I have it on this particular computer. I'm just going to run it. This is going to do the everything setup for me really quickly, and then runs. And this is a really nice search tool. What I can do is I can type in Android and do a search. Right now it's scanning the local disk. It takes a while the first time it does it, but from then on it's extremely quick. So it's already pretty much finished here. That didn't take very long at all. So it found the Android SDK. I just typed in Android-SDK. Do that, get everything. You're not going to regret it. Mine happens to be in C Android. Yours is probably going to be in Program Files or something like that, because I think if you just install the default one, that's where it goes. That tells you, inside of that, that tells you which ones you have. Another way of telling which ones you have, and so then, you just set all this up. You'd set QVGA, you'd set the SD card. You want to make sure this is about 512. There's already one named this, so I'm going to name it 2. And then just say OK, and that will create one. Another way to find out which ones you have created is you can go up to Tools, SDK Manager, and this will pop up a handy little program that tells you which ones you have installed, and you can install more of them, in fact. And you just click to install them. You just click on these boxes to install like 19. It shows me that I have 19 installed. If I wanted to install, for example, 13, well, I have 13 installed too, but it's still loading up some of these ones that I don't have, I think. Oh, here's some API 8.7. If I wanted to install these, I could just click on them and install them. So that's really easy to do. Another thing that you will probably want to know as you get going on this is that in Tools Options is where it sets the SDK locations. So this is, you gotta have the Java location. It does work on Java JDK 1.7. I'm currently running 1.6. I need to upgrade really soon, but it will run on 1.7 as well. I think 1.6 is the default one it installs for you. If you've put your Android SDK in a different location, you need to specify that here. And anyway, that's about it. And the main reason I got off on that tangent is I wanted you to be able to load up your emulator manager and hit start on whichever emulator you want to use. I'm using Mono for Android API 14. And then if I hit run, start without debugging, I should see this load up in my Android emulator. I had to select my API quick there, and it's going to do installing the platform framework and all of that again. And I'm just going to let it kind of do that. One thing that I'm going to put up on D2L for you that you'll need to get really quickly, and you could get it while it's doing this, is the icons, because we're going to do icons next. Okay, actually apparently this will not run on SDK 14.0, which isn't a huge surprise, so I'm going to run this on a different, higher version, I think version 19. I'll load this up on my Galaxy Nexus emulator, Galaxy N Nexus. I'm actually going to try this on version 16 because I had some issue with getting 19 running. Rule of thumb here is to try a bunch of different options. Here it goes, building our hello world, and we'll see how that works. Okay, this error usually means that the thing is now fully loaded, so we gotta wait a little bit. So if you get that error, don't be scared, just wait for this to load up. By the way, while we're waiting, let me let you know, if you do have a phone, it's a lot easier to deploy to phones, and I will show you how to do that next time. I wanted to get you used to deploying to emulators first, because it's important to know how to do that, but phones make this a lot easier, and we'll show you how to do that next time. But for now, let's just wait for this to load up. Just finishing the installed shared runtime of this Hello World app here. Had a few problems getting it running, but this should work. And the next thing you should see is installing Platform Framework. Just about down here. The next thing it should say is installing application on device. And then from there, it should automatically launch it on the Android emulator. And then synchronizing assemblies. It's kind of the last step before it actually deploys in. Then it should say deployment completed. And it should automatically take over. The activity should automatically come up. Let's see if it does. There's our Hello World app that we created. So it says Hello World here, and we click on it. So it says Hello Xamarin Android. That is the A label text that we see there. And then we have created a button that says Say Hello. And that button is right here. And if we click Say Hello, it should say hello from the button. So what's basically going on is the button has a function that basically changes the text label to say hello from the button. And so alabel.text equals hello from the button. And that's basically it for this particular application. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is creating a task manager. And basically the task manager that I showed you before is going to be all designed within Xamarin, so it's going to be cross-platform compatible and ready to use on iOS as well as Android. We're kind of running out of time for today's unit videos. This last one was about 23 minutes long. The one before that was 20, and then we had of course, the final XNA RPG video as well. So I'm going to end for now, and next week we'll get into the tasking system in great detail. So we're not going to start that today, but basically if you do want to continue with these, in the line of these tutorials, I would suggest that you take a look at the Hello World activity as we've created here. Maybe create some additional buttons, send some things back and forth between the buttons and the text. There's also quite a bit that we can do in terms of the icons, and we'll get into that next time. For now, one thing you could do is if you go to Xamarin Files, Activity Lifecycle, it has or actually not Activity Lifecycle, I'm sorry, if you go to Getting Started, there's the Hello World. This is what we've just completed. And basically there is a section here that you can do. I'll let you follow along on your own, of setting application icons. I put up the Xamarin Android application icons up there already, and what you would basically do is you would put these in the resources folder and follow along these steps. This is actually going to be the optional assignment for this week, and we'll see how far you can get on that. And that is it for today.